Hi everybody! Well, April 12th is a very special day each year. It is the birthday of Beverly Cleary. It also has to do with Drop Everything and Read. Beverly Cleary, as most of you know, is a very famous Oregon author. And Drop Everything and Read is D.E.A.R Day. Drop everything and read. Now, since it's on a Sunday and we're in different kinds of classrooms, I thought it would be good to talk to you about it this year since we're online. And you could say happy birthday to Beverly Cleary at her website, beverlycleary.com, or on Facebook in her messages. 103. I want to tell you a little bit about Beverly Cleary. I did some research. She's one of my favorite authors, and I always find it interesting to read about her. Not just her books, but about her. Beverly Cleary was born in 1916. Her name was Beverly Atlee Bunn. She became Beverly Cleary later on when she married her husband Clarence. She is considered a living legend by the Library of Congress. There was over 91 million copies of her books in 28 languages worldwide. Her first book, Henry Huggins, was published in 1950. In the 1960s, when I first started to read, that was one of the very first books I read, Henry Huggins, and I always loved his character and his dog, Ribsy. Beverly Cleary was born in Yamhill. She lived on a farm, and her mother got books for her from a library at a distance, and she ended up setting up a library. She learned really how to read when she was in 3rd grade. And throughout that time, she learned to love writing and reading. Her school librarian suggested that she write for boys and girls when she grew up. This quote says, "She decided that she someday would write the books she longed to read, but was unable to find on the library shelves. Funny stories about her neighborhood and children she knew. And so Ramona Quimby and Tebbets and other beloved characters were born." She was inspired by letters later on from children that she received about Drop Everything and Read. That's a program that we all know and are familiar with at school. And we do everywhere nationwide, schools do special programs about it. But she actually wrote about it in one of her books. And I'm going to read that to you now. The book is Beverly Quimby, Age 8. And on page 38, she learned about sustained reading. That's what it used to be called, sustained silent reading. Today and from now on, we're going to have Sustained Silent Reading Day, Mrs. Whaley announced. Ramona liked the sound of sustained silent reading, even though she was not sure what it meant and why it was important. This means that every day after lunch, we're going to sit at our desk and read silently to ourselves any book we choose. Even mysteries, someone asked? Even mysteries. Do we have to give book reports on what we read? Asked one suspicious member of the class. No book reports on your sustained silent reading, Mrs. Whaley promised the class. Then she went on, I don't think sustained silent reading sounds very interesting, so I think we'll call it something else. Here she printed 4 big letters on the board, and she read out D.E.A.R. Can anyone guess what those letters stand for? The class thought and thought. Do everything all right, suggested one student. A good thought, but not the right answer. Don't eat a reader, suggested Yard Ape. Mrs. Whaley laughed and told him to try again. As Ramona thought, she stared out the window at the blue sky, the treetops, and in the distance the snow-capped peak of Mount Hood, looking like a giant licked ice cream cone. R could stand for run and A for and. Drop everything and run, Ramona burst out. Mrs. Whaley, who was not the sort of teacher who expected everyone to raise a hand before speaking, laughed and said, Almost right, Ramona, but you've forgotten. We're talking about reading. Drop everything and read, chorused the class. Ramona decided that she preferred sustained silent reading to D.E.A.R because it sounded more grown up. But when the time came for everyone to drop everything and read, she sat quietly doing her silent reading. So, Isn't it wonderful that Beverly Cleary made note of this in one of her books? So throughout the years, Beverly Cleary has won many awards, including the Newbery Medal winner, Laura Ingalls Wilder, and the National Book Award. She has won so many, I couldn't even write them all down. But I wanted to tell you two more things about Beverly Cleary. I found some really good quotes, and I'm going to read them to you. More than anything, Ramona stands for empathy in the face of misunderstanding. She reminds us of how it was to be a child in a big world, needing to be seen, cared for, and reminded that we belong. Beverly Cleary wrote that. This other one by Beverly Cleary says, nothing in the whole world felt as good as being able to make something from a sudden idea. So she loved to read, she loved to write, and I want to encourage all of you to enjoy reading and writing. Through your reading, it's a good way to explore what you really want to do. And now that we have time on our hands, it's a great time to catch up on reading just because it's reading. I know kids are going back to class, and that will be interesting for them, but I hope that all of you find time to read something just because you love to read. Thank you. Happy birthday, Beverly Cleary. Bye-bye.